Hi, everybody. This is Patrick Zielbauer from Infinity Futures. Welcome. It is 3:30 on Monday, December 11th. I want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. Can you give me a quick yes if you can hear me all right, please? All right, great, fantastic. So let's read through some risk stuff real quick. We'll take some questions on that if necessary, and then we'll just move right into it. Trading futures, options on futures, and retail off-exchange foreign currency transactions involve substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances, knowledge, and resources. You may lose all or more of your initial investment. Opinions, market data, and recommendations are subject to change at any time. Past performance is not indicative of future results. All right, so folks, just be very conscious of the fact that you should only deposit risk capital into a futures account. That means money you can afford to risk without lengthening your retirement horizon or hurting your lifestyle or anything like that. If you have any questions as to where you may fall on the risk capital curve, so to speak, please feel free to discuss that with your representative in our office. Everyone here's got one, whether you're a client of ours or not. If you're not sure who it is, just reply to any of the email you get from Infinity, and that will direct you to the right place. If you're still unsure, send an email to trade@infinityfutures.com. That will go to our management. They'll get you to the right place. All right. Okay, great. So if you have any questions about risk, please do feel free to ask anytime. All right. My name is Patrick Zielbauer. I am an AP of Infinity Futures. I've been working for Infinity for over 13 years. And as you know, Infinity offers and supports a ever popular and growing charting program called Sierra. How many people in here are already familiar to some degree with Sierra Chart? Can you give me an indication of whether or not you use this program? Okay. Okay, so the general consensus among the people who typically attend these events are people who is that this is a program that they use, that they want to become more proficient in, but it's a very open-ended program, and we acknowledge that. And that's why we continue to do these events. So this particular event is going to be a little bit more geared towards people who are brand new to Sierra. So I'm really going to kind of start from scratch. And for those of you who have a lot of expertise with Sierra, please exercise patience. We're going to start from the beginning, and we're going to get through the basic stuff today. We're not going to get into too much of the craziness that you can do with this program. We'll save that for another event. The other thing I wanted to mention is that starting next year, we're probably going to be doing these as a recurring GoToWebinar event on a weekly basis, or maybe even more often. So this is going to be something that we can do a little bit more, and we're going to be able to title the events differently, and they'll cover different topics. It'll be a little bit different than how it kind of feels like a one-off currently. All right. So hopefully you find everything useful, and of course we welcome your feedback. But again, for this particular presentation, we're going to start from scratch. And so what I'm really going to do here is I'm going to close the chart that we've got, and what I would like to do is take you as a new user through the process of setting up charts sort of for the first time, and some things that I like to do with my own program that save me a lot of time and energy. One of the things that really drives me crazy about charting, just like anything else, is doing the same thing over and over and over again. I can't stand doing that. And one of the cool things about Sierra is that Sierra allows a user to build a chart or charts, and it allows the user to link these charts in a way that can reflect changes on all the charts rather than just the one you're on. So that's good for someone who has lots of time frames or lots of markets open and wants to make an adjustment to something without having to make that adjustment 1,000 more times. There's also a lot you can do with the right-click interface. So if you're a right clicker, you like to right click a lot to get your menu up, you can customize that. You can customize the control bar at the top of the screen. You see that yours probably doesn't look exactly like mine. I'm going to go through some of that as well. But the general idea here is that there are a lot of things you can do in this program to make your life a little easier. And hopefully we can cover some of that here with you today. All right, so the first thing that I want to show you how to do is just to get a chart up and running for the first time. So all you need to do to get started is to go to the FS button in the top of the toolbar, that stands for find symbol. So if you hover your cursor over these symbols at the top of the screen, it'll tell you what they are. Okay, so FS stands for find symbol. Another place to get to the same location here, and you'll find that in this program there are often numerous ways to get to the same end. You can also go to File and select Find Symbol right here. And that's going to yield a window that looks like this. Okay, now when you get to this window, you're going to see that there's, you may see the futures specifically like this, or it may look like this, okay, where you have like a whole bunch of choices. What we're going to be looking at are the futures here. We're going to start to be adding support for some of these other feeds. Most of them don't work yet. There are some, cost and regulatory implications of offering things like stocks and other stuff, but we are working towards some solutions there. But for now, let's focus on the futures. So we just click on futures, and now you get another menu that looks like this, where you can start to see descriptions and symbols. Now, if you know the symbols already for the market you're trying to get started with, you can just type it in here, or you can locate it through this menu. As an example, if I wanted to look at the March contract of the NASDAQ, for those of you who may know, we're in the rollover process really today. Everyone's kind of looking at the March contract of 2018. You can click on the little blue, the little plus sign next to NQ and look for NQH8. You can still technically trade the December contract. So it doesn't say EXP next to it yet, which stands for expired. It actually expires this coming Friday, but the volume is really shifting into the March contract right now. So you can locate the symbol that way, or if you know the symbol, you can just type it in. One thing that's kind of handy is that for those of you who are familiar with the Infinity AT scoreboard, these symbols here are the same ones that would go here. So if you want to look at your scoreboard for a reference, these symbols here, this is the same formatting that you would use on the Sierra chart program. So if you wanted to load, for example, symbol the S&P, ESH8, it's the same formatting here. Okay, I'm going to move this off the screen for now. All right, so we've got NQH8 here. Now from here, what to do next? So if you want to open up an intraday chart, and we define intraday as something that's less than a daily chart, you would just push open intraday chart right here. If you want to open a daily chart, which is like a 1 day per bar or higher, you would hit open historical chart. However, it doesn't really matter that much which one of these you pick, because you can change them after the fact. So long time ago, you had to pick one or the other, and you couldn't switch it back and forth. That problem has been rectified long ago. Now you can switch back and forth. So it doesn't really matter which one of these you pick. For now, I'm just going to push open intraday chart. And what you'll notice is that the window stays open. So it loads the chart in the background. The window stays open, basically affording me the opportunity to select another market and open another chart, which I could easily do. But for now, I'm just going to close the window. And now we're looking at a 5-minute chart of the March NASDAQ. Okay. Now from here, there's lots that you can do. You can start to add studies. You can add drawing tools. You can do all kinds of stuff. You can change the colors. We're going to go through some of this stuff. But as I mentioned before, there are certain things that I like to do to my chart the first time when I launch it, because when I start making copies of this chart and changing things like maybe the symbol or the time frame, I don't want to redo these things over again. The very first thing that, for whatever reason, we get asked about is how do I create some space between the current candle and the y-axis where the prices are. And the way that you do that is just use the wheel on your mouse, or you can use this little scroll bar down here at the bottom right to create the desired amount of space. And once you have it looking the way you want, just right click and choose lock fill space. Okay, lock fill space. All right, so I'm going to do that. And you notice when I right click again that is checked. By the way, the NASDAQ's making a new high right now, which means that we might have had some earnings come out, or who knows. Does anyone know what's driving this right now? Yeah, look at that. Amazing. Late rally. All right, now how do you know that lock fill space is on? If you go into the bottom right corner of the screen, you'll see this capital L. That's how you know that lock fill space is engaged on the chart that you're looking at. So you can always double check this by right clicking and seeing if you have lock fill space checked, or if you don't want to have to do that, you just look in the bottom right here and look for the capital L. If you have capital L here, that means that lock fill space is on. Okay? All right, now there's a number. Usually this question comes up next. There's a number next to the capital L, number 12 here. What does that mean? The number 12 is a measurement of how zoomed in or out of the chart we are. So what I'm doing right now is left clicking the mouse and putting it on the X axis where the times are. And I'm just left clicking and dragging to the left. In other words, I'm sort of zooming into the current market. So that number gets bigger the more distance we have in between the candles. So if I'm zoomed way in, that number is really, really big. And if I'm zoomed way out, that number gets really, really small. All right, so why do we even bother with that? It's because some people like to look at multiple charts next to each other and they want to make sure that they have the same amount of bars visible on each one. So it's a quick way to look down at the bottom right and make sure your spacing is identical. There's also a really cool linking feature that I'm going to show you in a minute where you can automatically keep this same scroll position and zoom in out position for all the charts. It's pretty neat. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, now, so I'm going to zoom just out here a little bit. Another thing I want to comment on about this little green box is notice how the box is green. Okay, look what happens when I grab the scroll bar and I go back in time. It turns red, right? If you look down here and see a red box, this means you are not scrolled to the front of the chart. So if you're looking at your chart and you're like, wait a second, why isn't the price moving? Maybe I should give Patrick a call and ask him. The first thing I'd like you to do before you do that, not saying I don't want to hear from you, okay, but first thing you should check in the bottom right corner is make sure you're scrolled to the front. All right, you can use the end key on your keyboard to get to the front of the chart, or you could just scroll yourself over with your mouse or this arrow. All right, so that's there's a lot of information, strangely, in this little box. That's what it means. All right, so the reason I like to do lock fill space now and not later is because when I make a copy of this chart and start adjusting for time frames, like different multi-time frame views, I don't have to redo that lock fill space function because it's going to go with the copy. All right, so that's just one little thing that I like to do in advance. Another thing that I like to do is I like to establish a link number on the chart. And the quick and easy way to do that is to look for this chart link 1 option that we put in your toolbar by default. Most of you probably have this in here. If you don't, we can show you and we will show you how to customize the toolbar so you can add things like link numbers, to the toolbar. And if I choose this CL1, you'll see when I push it, it just kind of pushes in so you can see that it's selected. You'll actually see a little L1 come up in the header right up here. All right, the idea here is that linking a chart to another chart can accomplish things like not having to redo settings when you change something on a chart. So ultimately, we're going to link these charts all to the same number so that when we do something to the chart, automatically the same action will apply to the others. This is not really something we've covered in these events before to the degree that I plan to do it. So even if you've seen me talk about this before, don't glaze over because there are some useful applications to this. All right. Okay, so we've got a link number 1, and we've also got lock fill space on, so we're looking good. Another place I'd like to show you where you can do the linking in case you don't have this in your toolbar is if you go to the chart menu and look down where you see linking and choose number 1, like this. So you see, for me, link 1 is already selected. Okay, but you go to the chart menu, linking, number, and then link number 1. All right, that's another way to get to the same end. Okay, so we've got link number 1. Now, usually the next step here would be to build a quote screen that allows us to control what symbol is being viewed. And that's really where I want to go next. And I'm going to show you a couple other linking options. The way that we build a little quote screen, or what we call a quote board, is go to File, New Quote Board. And a quote board is a little window that floats around. It doesn't anchor to the window, okay? It's its own free floating thing. And what's ultimately going to happen here is we're going to be putting symbols in, and then we're going to make it so that when we click the symbol, the chart flips over to that symbol. So if you go to symbol here, you just double click and you just start typing them in. ESH8 and push enter. NQH8, enter. RTY, the Russell H8, there's that, YMH8. And let's throw a couple other markets in here. So let's do CLF8, which is crude. GCG8, which is gold, ZBH8, which is bonds. That's a good starting point. So we got the S&P, the NASDAQ, the Russell, the Dow, crude, gold, bonds, and let's do the euro. I think we're still in Z7 for that. Yeah. All right. Now, once you put these symbols in, some things you may want to do right off the bat. Number one, I recommend once you have these looking in an order that you like, go to the settings option and hit sort locked right here. Sort locked means that if I accidentally click in the header of these columns, it doesn't resort the symbols by highest to lowest of that value, kind of like Excel. Sometimes it's easy to do that automatic or by accident. If you accidentally click in here and all of a sudden you've resorted everything, it's kind of annoying. You have to go back and fix it. So the first thing that I like to do once I have the symbols looking the way I want is go to settings and hit sort locked. The next thing I do is go to the settings menu again and I select set chart link. And when we do that, you're going to see a number and a color that should look relatively familiar. L1, you'll notice we had the same chart link number 1 with the same color in the toolbar. So I'm going to choose L1 and push OK, and you'll see that L1 shows up in the header right up here. So now that this quote board shares a link number with this chart, if I click on a new symbol, the chart is going to reload to that symbol. One thing I'd like to make a comment on about the charting software in general is that you notice that switching from one market to another is very quick. That's because the first time you download new data, like I haven't looked at the Dow in a while, so it's going to download some historical data real quick. You saw that happen. All right, once you do that, that data is stored locally on your device. It doesn't have to be re-downloaded from our server every time you click. So it's really, really quick, and it uses very few system resources or network resources because it's accessing the data from your local disk. All right, so that's the set chart link function. That's really what that's designed to do, is allow you to toggle between these different markets. Now from here, just like you may think, hey, it's probably a good idea to save this, you can save quote board symbol lists. You just go to File right on the quote board and go to Save Symbol List As, and just name it, let's call this 12/11/17 webinar. And now we've got that symbol list saved. So if I ever need to open up a new quote board, I can load that symbol list really easily. It's going to show up down here, but you could also load it from right here. You see it shows up. So you can save symbol lists just like you could save chart books. Chart books are collections of charts and studies. All right, so now we've got a quote board. We've got the quote board linked to the chart. So we can now successfully monitor a number of these products at once. All right, so we're on the right track. Now the next thing is to customize and in many cases reduce the amount of fields you see up here at the top. So I like to keep this pretty simple. The current symbol, the last price, the net change in points and percentage, and the high and low. That's it. There's a lot of useless data that you could put in a quote board that is just distracting, like bid and offer size. To me, it makes no sense to have that in this format. So if you go to settings and select set fields, okay, settings and set fields, this is where you can customize what is here and what could be added. This kind of left to right framework where you've got what's currently available versus what's currently being shown is a common theme inside Sierra. You're going to see it in many other places. You're going to see many menus that look like this, where you've got a choice on the left side of a long list of stuff you can pick from, and then you've got an add button and a way to put it over to the right side and then move it up or down in the order that you want. So this is where you can make those changes. A lot of the stuff you'll notice, if you were following along here, I removed. All right, that's just done to clean up the chart or clean up the space a bit. All right, so once you have it looking the way you want, just click OK, and it'll automatically reload. You can also squish these things together a little bit. If you put your cursor where one column meets the other one, if space is at a premium on your screen, you don't need these columns to be necessarily this wide. You can kind of squish it down like this. All right, so this is what the quote board, how it may look on your screen. All right, now from here, the next sort of logical step to go, and there were some questions, I will answer the questions that came through, okay? There haven't been a ton so far, so I just want to keep moving through a few things and then we'll answer some questions as we go. All right, the next thing that I would recommend you learn how to do from here is to duplicate the chart and change the time frames. So duplicating the chart is, to me, one of the, not the, maybe the single most useful aspect of Sierra, meaning I can just very easily make a copy of the chart we already have and just change something about it instead of rebuilding it from scratch. So all you need to do to duplicate a chart is right click and select a duplicate chart. Okay, right click duplicate chart. You will also find that same command under the chart menu over here, duplicate chart. Now there's another chart option or another duplicate option called duplicate chart to chartbook. That is to copy a chart that we're looking at now into another chart book that's open already. That's a useful function too, but for now we just want to duplicate the chart. So I'm going to do that. And it's going to reload really quickly, and at the bottom of the screen you're going to see a different tab for each one of these. This is how you know we've got two charts open. And you can actually repeat that process a few times. Right click, duplicate chart. Now we got a third one, fourth, fifth, and let's do a sixth. So now we've got 6 5-minute NASDAQ charts up. So that's kind of silly. Why would we have, you know, the same market up here 6 times with the same time frame? Obviously, we're not going to keep it that way. But the very first thing I would do next to sort of arrange these in a way that it's going to allow me to continually customize things is to go to the window menu. And I like to use this option here called Tile as Grid Vertically. Tile as Grid Vertically. And what that does is it forces the screen to display all the charts that we've got open that are not minimized. So now we can see all 6 of the charts that we've got. All right, so this quote board here, like you saw, it's a floating window. We can arrange this. Usually what I end up doing is I will sort of arrange the screen in a way that allows me to keep the quote board up and visible. All right, this is going to be entirely personal preference. All right, I like to do things a certain way. Everybody's obviously a little bit different. But the objective for me is I like to be able to see the quote board and all my charts at the same time. So my screen might look something like this. All right, and again, totally flexible. And the quote board and these charts can all be detached and put on other monitors and things like that. I'll explain. I'll give you a couple of those examples too. But from here, let's kind of move forward into the time frames. So as I click on the quote board, you'll see that just like you'd expect, when I click on a new symbol, all the charts are flipping over to that symbol. Okay, like this. I'm going to close this message log here for a minute. All right, now the time frames. This is a really cool feature that allows you to toggle between different time frames very quickly. I like to use the keyboard for this. There's also some buttons at the top, 1 minute, 5 minute, 15 minute, hour, daily, weekly that you can use. If you don't like to use the keyboard, you can customize these as well. But what I'm going to show you first is how to change these different time frames with your keyboard. And then we're going to go into some other linking choices here that I mentioned earlier and then move forward. All right, now first thing, to make a chart a daily chart, you can either click DLY, right up there, I just did that, it just changes this little chart here that we were clicked on to a daily chart. Or, I'm going to put it back to 5 minutes here, I'll explain how I'm doing it in a minute. You can just left click anywhere on the chart and type on your keyboard 1D, enter. All right, where do you have to type? How do you know you're typing in the right place? Let me show you. See the header of this window right up here? I'm just going to left click anywhere on the chart and just type in 1D. You see the text showing up right up here? Enter. We now have a daily chart. All right, you don't have to see the text. If you trust yourself, your ability to type that on the keyboard, you don't have to zoom this out or expand that to see that. But that's how you can quickly change a chart to a daily. This one down here, let's do 60 minutes. So again, left click anywhere. Doesn't have to be in the header, but just left click anywhere so that this chart is the one that's selected. 60M. See, this shows up right up here. Enter. We now have a 60-minute bar. Okay, up here, this Dow 5-minute chart, let's make this a 1-minute chart. 1M, enter. We now have a 1-minute chart. Down here, let's try a tick chart. So let's call it 144 ticks. Okay, left click anywhere, 144T for ticks or trades, enter. We now have a 144 tick chart or trades, same thing, those are synonymous. Okay, up here, let's do volume. So every bar we want to be based on 500 contracts traded. 500V for volume, enter. Now we've got a new bar for every 500 contracts that trade. Down here, range bars. Let's say that we want an 8-tick range bar. So every time the market exceeds a new 8-tick range, we want a new bar. 8R, enter. We have range bars now. So D for daily, M for minute, T for trades or ticks, V for volume, R for range. Those are the most common operators. There are some others. Sierra's got a list on their website. Okay, we can show you how to get there if you need, but these are the most common. These charts here, the tick chart or the trades chart, volume, and range, these are what are called activity-based charts, which means you only get a new bar not based on a certain number of minutes or seconds elapsing, but rather something occurring. In this case, every 144 trades, you get a new bar. So if there's a lot of trading going on, you're going to get bars really fast. Same thing with volume, similar thing with volume. Every 500 contracts that trade, you get a new bar. So if there's lots of volume piling through, you're going to get bars really quickly. Same thing with the range bar. If the market is very volatile and the market is going up and down and it's creating this new 8-point range very frequently, you're going to get lots and lots of bars. So some people like to use these activity-based charts to smooth out the chart a little bit instead of a time-based chart where they might get one giant bar like this. Okay? All right, so Lewis, your question about weekly or monthly charts, I believe you can do W for week. Let me see. Yeah, you can do W for week. Monthly, it might be MO. I'm not 100% sure, but you can also go to chart, bar periods, and choose monthly from here. I think monthly might be MO. I'm not 100% certain on that, but that option is available here as well. So you can get to the same place this way as well. Okay. All right, so now again, we've got our quote board, everything's linked. Okay, I have this message log set to come up because sometimes I use this data. You don't really necessarily have to keep this up like this. A lot of times you can squish this down and just exit out. If it has to come back up, it'll come back in the corner without bothering you. All right, but as we click here, it's gonna reload the chart based on these new bars, whatever market we select. Okay. What's the difference between volume and tick? Larry, volume is number of contracts traded. Tick is the number of trades that are occurring, or trades or number of trades occurring. So as an example, somebody could do a one lot or a one trade where they're buying 50 contracts at the market. That is only one trade, but it's 50 contracts. Okay. Neil, the Renko charts, Sierra has undergone a massive development with Renko charts. We don't really have time to cover that here, but basically they've been stating for a long time that they're moving away from treating Renko as a study, and now it's actually a bar type. So you can investigate this yourself. Sierra's got it very well documented on their website, but if you right-click on the chart and go to chart settings, I don't want to get too far off topic here, but you'll see that there's a bar type and there's lots of Renko choice. There's a Renko choice here, several Renko choices, and they've taken it a step further with a couple of other menus specifically related to Renko charts. So what you were looking for is probably still there. We just might need to reset some things, Neil. And again, that's pretty well documented on their website. They just made a big update to that. All right. Okay, Greg had a question about rollover. The charts are set by default to rollover automatically. If you right-click on the chart and go to chart settings, you'll see that there's an option here called automatically rollover future symbol. I believe the way that Sierra is handled, the way Sierra used to handle it is it would roll over based on the calendar day that the equity index rollover would show on the CME's website. However, in recent years, sometimes the rollover date actually takes place a day before the majority of the volume really starts to shift into the next month. So they may have tacked on a day on the equity indexes. That is something that may have just changed. So you'll want to check that when the March contracts expire in March. So we got kind of a ways away for that. But if you want to disable the rollover function, you can right-click and go to chart settings and uncheck this option. Okay. Same thing with the quote board. Same idea. If they're going to roll over automatically based on the CME's rollover date. And the quote board, the quote board is going to be using the same conventions as the chart itself. Okay. Sharon, if you have a trade window attached to the chart, you can remove it by going to the trade menu up here and unchecking this option. And it's going to float the window, and then you can close the window. All right. Okay, now from here, what I'd like to do next is show you how to link the charts by other facets of the chart, not just the quote board up here. So what I mean by that is mostly studies and other things like the vertical scale, the horizontal scale, and the scroll position. So what I typically do here is I will set one of my charts up to be what the Sierra refers to as the master chart. So you don't necessarily have to use what they call master mode here, but I do use it because it comes in handy. And the way to do this is to right click on the chart and go to chart settings. And you'll see under the advanced settings 2 option up here, there is a link number, which we know is 1. But we also have the ability here to link these charts by other functions. So we don't need to worry about the symbol because the quote board is controlling the symbol. But the things that I typically like to link here are the scroll position, which is where we are back in time, the studies, meaning if we change a study on one chart, we want the study to change on the other chart, and the bar spacing, which is how zoomed in or out we are, and then the vertical scale, which is like if we click on the y-axis and drag up or down. And then on one of the charts, I use master mode. So that's the first, in this case, the first one. All right, so what this basically means is that any other chart that also has link number 1 will have these options take effect without going and having to check them on each chart. Master mode, in effect, applies what all these check marks to any other charts that share the same link number, in this case 1. So I've done this on the 60-minute chart here. So if I were to right click and go to studies, and let's just add, and this is how you get to the studies section. I know I kind of blitzed through that, but if you right click on the chart and go to studies and click on moving average, let's call it moving average exponential, and add it. And I'm going to get to the customizing studies and colors and all that in a second. For now, I just want to push add or apply. Note that the study applies to all my charts because all these charts share the same link number. And because this first chart has also had a master mode selected, again, right click, chart settings, advanced settings 2, because master mode is on, that means that I don't have to go check all these options for the other charts. They're automatically taking the direction from this chart. It's a really neat function. It should save you a bunch of time. Now, some of the other things that are going to take effect here, besides just the studies, are if you notice, we also have scroll position, bar spacing, and vertical scale. So scroll position means as I scroll back in time, everything scrolls back in time. So if you find that insanely irritating, you'll want to leave that option off, but that's what the scroll position is. The bar spacing is if you left click on the times and zoom in or zoom out, they're all zooming in and zooming out at the same time. And then the vertical scale is if I left click in the y-axis and I drag up to squish or expand the bars, it's doing it on all the charts at the same time. So you might not consider it to be as relevant when you're looking at a bunch of charts of the same market, but it is kind of interesting to have this sort of behavior when you're looking, say, at 6 or 8 charts of the same market. And you want to go back and see, okay, how did this bar look on this market compared to that same bar on another market without having to put any effort forth. So again, just convenience. And it's really easy to set up. So the idea with the master mode is that you don't have to go choose all these little options for each of the charts. If you have one of them selected as master mode, that means that anything you do on that chart will automatically apply to any other chart with the same link number. All right, there's a video on our website too about linking charts by study. It's using a similar idea. All right. Now, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to leave this intact here, and anybody who wants a copy of this file, if you want to use this to work backwards off of or something, I will invite you to just request a copy of it from your representative in our office, and we'll make sure to get it to you. Sometimes looking at the actual software with the same file we're using in this event, along with the recording, is a good way to iron out issues and learn. So you're welcome to have that. But for now, what I'm going to do is go to File, New Chart Book. And I'm going to open up very briefly here 2 different charts of the same market. So I'm going to just do 2 NASDAQ charts. I'm going to tile them on the screen. And on the left side, I'm going to make one a 60-minute and leave the other one as a 5-minute. And what I want to show you now is how you can draw a line on one of the charts and have that drawing automatically apply to the other one. One of the things you'll hear me say a lot in these events with respect to Sierra is Sierra allows a user to really scale back the amount of charts and data they are forcing themselves to look at and understand on a daily basis. One really cool way to do that, and there's lots of aspects of this, we might get a chance to cover some of them today besides this, is to take data or data points from one chart and put them on another one. The end game or the goal being that you don't have to have all the charts up all the time. Here's an example of how you might be able to make use of that idea. So on the 60-minute chart, I'm going to select my horizontal line drawing tool, and I will cover in a minute here how to do some of this stuff in the toolbar. We'll do that next. And what I'm going to do is just draw a couple of lines. So first thing is I'm going to do one here at around 63.53-ish. Put that there. Okay, that's maybe I consider that near term support, and then I'll put one here that I consider to be another set of near term support, and then this one here at this level. And then let's just say we have one more at horizontal line, except I'm going to use a different, what I call tool configuration. I'll explain that in a minute. I'm going to check TC2, and that's going to be a different color, and that's going to represent this like mishmash area right here. Okay, so in my mind, I already know that blue represents support or resistance, and pink represents nothingness. Okay. What I want to do is take those lines and display them on the 5-minute chart, so I don't necessarily have to have the 60-minute chart up all the time. And the way to do that is to draw the lines on one chart, and on what we call the destination chart, we're going to right-click and choose Chart Settings, and you're going to end up in this Advanced Settings 2 field. At the very bottom right, there's a field here that says Copy Chart Drawings from Chart Numbers, and it's blank. The number that it's referring to is this number up here in the top of the chart. Every chart has a number. This is chart number 1, this is chart number 2, and so on. So all I need to do here, since we're on chart number 2, is list 1 in the field. Copy chart drawing from chart number 1. Push apply, and you can see immediately we're going to get a response. So this value of 63.75.75 is actually this line being broadcast onto the 5-minute chart. If we were to kind of zoom out here, we're going to see those other lines as well. So it's a way where you can take certain data points from other time frames. Like maybe you have a different tool configuration for each time frame, like one for daily, one for 60-minute, etc. And you have those all drawn properly. Maybe you draw them on Sundays or Monday morning or something. You don't have to touch them the rest of the week unless you want to. All right, and it's not limited to just the drawing tools like a horizontal line. You can also do with other drawing tools. One of the things that I really like is I like this extending rectangle tool. So as an example, what I can do here is I could say, all right, I'm going to draw an extending rectangle kind of in this area. Because if we get back up here before we had this big drop off after Thanksgiving, I want to be notified. So I'm going to kind of highlight this, 10-ish or whatever point range here. So I do that, and it's going off into the future. Now, without even looking at the hourly, I'll just minimize that. If I'm looking at my 5-minute chart and I see the market ripping into this area, which it's not far, I know we're coming back into that area that we sold off from around the holiday without even looking at the longer time frame chart. And what you start to see here is that there are ways using this program to consolidate your view with the goal of reducing decision fatigue, looking at too much data, too many markets, too many time frames. Usually when you're looking at the other time frames, there's little bits that you really need out of those time frames. You don't necessarily need to tax your brain by looking at all those time frames all day long. Maybe you've got a perfectly good reason for doing that. My opinion is that this is a nice way to consolidate a bit. All right, now the same thing can be done with studies. So I'm going to give one example of a study here. This is what I would consider to be a moderately advanced function on the chart. So I'm not going to go too far into it here, because there's some other basic stuff I want to cover. It's really going to be hard for me to not press this because this is where you get into really some of the really neat stuff you can do in the program. But I want to give you one more example that's on the same topic. So what I'm going to do on the 60 minute is add, let's call it let's do that, let's say a 34 period moving average. So I'll just go to moving average, exponential, and I'm going to make mine a 34 minute or 34 period and apply it. And we can see now, here's a 34 period. Actually, you know what? Let's make that a little tighter. Let's just go 8. So it's a little closer to the market. Okay, so there's an 8 period EMA with a value of around 6404. What I can actually do is I can right click on my destination chart and I can actually add a study that we have that's called study price overlay, like this. And in the settings section, I can select the chart number and the study that we want to overlay. So I'm looking at chart number 1, that's the 60 minute. Do we want to overlay the main price graph? No, we want to overlay the moving average, and we want it in the main price region, not region 2. So region 2 would be like down here where a stochastic or MACD would go. Region 1 is the main price graph. So I put it like this, and we can now see the 34 period EMA on a 60 minute chart on the 5 minute chart without even having the 60 minute chart visible. Now, if you feel like things get a little cluttered, you can label things as well. So on our source chart here, this 60 minute, I can actually add a label. Like I could call it 34 EMA 60M, like this. So I can actually see a label here, and we can make that same label display on our destination chart. There's an option here that says use short names from source study. We can apply it, and it would look like this. I know I just ripped through that, but you can watch the recording on how to do that. But now we can see that 34 EMA on a 60 minute chart on the 5 minute chart. All right, now this, as I mentioned, lends itself to a whole host of things you can do inside Sierra. You can combine studies together to create filters. You can have the chart color the bar or the background, or make an arrow or something when you have a series of conditions that are being met. So if you really want to dig into this thing, one thing you should start to do is start reviewing your own decision-making process to say, okay, when this, and this are true, I tend to want to go long or short. And it doesn't mean we're going to try to reduce you to, red light, green light only type trader, but I'd be willing to bet that you can probably have a few data points that are logical. They're not necessarily opinions, like this kind of looks like resistance or support. That's not something we can use. But if you were to say, if the market's above its 8 period EMA on a 5 minute time frame, and the market is above its 34 period EMA on a 60 minute time frame, and something and something and something, those are logical statements that we can then test the condition for. And if it's true, we can display that true or false result in a number of ways. Like I said, the bar being colored a certain way, the background being colored, a star or an alert or an arrow. So I would like you as someone who might be a relatively new user of this program to start to inventory your decision-making process, and let's see if we can actually make this program do for you what we believe it can do, instead of just showing you like all the features. All right, that's a really useful exercise. And it also forces you as a customer to inventory your own process and start to filter out stuff you don't actually use, but you just kind of look at because you saw it in someone's video overnight, or it kind of looks cool or whatever. If you don't actually, or if you're not actually using it, try to eliminate it. All right, so I challenge everybody to sort of do that, and then maybe as you come to the events and learn more, we can show you how to create those filters. Okay. All right, so again, that's a rabbit hole that is really hard to get out of once we go down. So I'm going to kind of cover some other topics here, but it's a really important idea, and I want everybody to understand, where we're coming from with that. So if you have any questions on that concept or comments, please feel free to share. Okay. Okay, Greg, the charts and the quote board don't link physically. So Greg asked, how do I link the charts with the quote board? They don't link, like they don't latch together, but you can link them by going to the settings and select set chart link and choose the same link number that you've got on your chart, which is probably CL1. Okay, so the idea is to have the link numbers be the same. That's how you link the charts in the quote board. Okay, if you're unsure, or if you don't have this in your toolbar for a chart, you can go to the chart menu, go to linking, and then pick a number, and then use the same number on the quote board. Okay? All right. Okay, next I want to talk about briefly the control bar at the top here and the right-click interface. So if you want to customize the control bar at the top, all you have to do is right-click and select Customize Control Bar 1. Okay, right-click, Customize Control Bar 1, or you can go to Window, or is it Global Settings, Customize Control Bars right here. So you can either right-click on the control bar itself and select Customize Control Bar, or you can go to Global Settings, Customize Control Bars, Control Bar 1. And that'll get you to the same spot. What you will see when you get here is very similar to what we saw earlier with the quote board. You have all the available commands that exist in all these menus at the top. File, edit, chart, analysis, et cetera, and some ones that don't exist in there. And then on the right, you've got everything that you're currently showing. So the status bar is this green one, right? Find symbol. You can see the order here start to make sense. Connect to data feed, which is grayed out because we're already connected. Disconnect from data feed, new chart book, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some things that you're not going to want to remove. You're probably going to want to keep the status bar just in case there's a disconnect or you're not sure what's going on. Find symbol, connect to data feed, disconnect, new chart book, open and close chart book. Those are things you probably want to keep in there. All right, duplicate chart, you may not have in there. That's something I like to use all the time. That way I don't even have to right click on the chart. I could just go right up to the toolbar, like right up here, and just hit dupe C, and it just makes a copy of the chart that I already got. All right. So that's how you customize the control bar. As you scroll down, you'll see that we start to get into tools. Pointer tool, hand tool, chart values tool, that's like a crosshair. Global cursor on means the crosshair is on all the charts, not just the chart that we're on. So there's all kinds of things you can toggle on and off from here. All the drawing tools, line tool, ray tool, horizontal line, etc., are all under this tools expandable menu like this. So you'll see that all the things that you're not currently showing in the toolbar or the control bar are going to be here, and all the ones that you currently have should be somewhere in here. If you add something and you want to put it in a certain area, you can use the move up or move down function on the right. As an example, let's say that I want to add, let's call it the extended line tool. So I can just click on it, click add, and it puts it right up here. And if I push OK, right now the vertical line tool is right here. So it should show up right between the vertical line and the non-extended tool. So right up here. So if I hit OK, it reloads, and there it is. Yeah, that's it. That's like a horizontal or an extended trend line. All right, so if you want to remove something, right click, control bar 1. I'll just go back to that same area. The extending line tool, remove it, push OK, and it goes away. So this is something that takes a little bit of trial and error because there's lots and lots of choices. But what you'll find is that as you're using the charting, you're going to be like, oh, it's annoying to have to go there or go to this menu, and how do I fix that, or how could I do that faster? That's when you can start to make changes to this. So as you use the program and you start to wonder, all right, how can I speed up this step? That's a lot of times where adding something to the control bar real quick can make, the next time you encounter that same situation a lot faster. All right, so again, right click, customize control bar, and then you'll see all these different choices. You can also add separators and blanks. So if you want to have, for example, if you have a common theme and you want to add a separator so they're not jammed up right next to the next one, you can add separators or spaces. All right. So any questions on the control bar, let me know. I'm going to move on to something else that's sort of related. If we have to come back to that, we will. All right, on a very similar note here, if you go to Global Settings, Customize Chart Shortcut menu, this is the same idea, except it's the right-click interface. All the menu of items that are available are on the left, and all the ones that I'm currently using are on the right. So the chart values, or which is the crosshair, the pointer, the hand, and then a space, or a separator. The line, ray, horizontal line, parallel lines, retracement, and so forth. So if I were to right-click, you can see that that's how mine looks. Crosshair, pointer, hand, separator. Line, ray, horizontal line, et cetera, separator, and so on. So this is another thing you can do. You can edit just to make your day-to-day life a little bit easier. All right, block fill space, duplicate chart. detach the window, detach/attach chart window for those of you with multiple screens. If you want to detach a window, it pops out, becomes its own window that floats. You can move it onto another monitor. It's still part of the same chart book. Right click, check the same option, detach/attach chart window. It's going to go right back to where it was. So if you got multiple screens and you want to start putting these charts on other screens, but that you want them to still be in the same chart book, that's a really easy way to do that. All right, so that's the control bar and then the right click interface under global settings, customize control bars, control bar 1, or you can right click on the control bar, hit customize control bar 1, and also global settings, customize chart shortcut menu, and then you get to this area. If you detach a chart, Richard, it still will be linked. Yes, so it's really physically just moving the chart. It doesn't change anything about how the chart is going to behave in terms of linking or studies or anything like that. All right. Okay, very, very good. All right, now a couple other little housekeeping things that I want to address because we only have a couple more minutes. I know this was a little bit basic here today, but it's all we got time for. If you want to have certain chart books open automatically, you can go up to Global Settings, General Settings, and up here in the top right area, there's a section called Files to open on startup. You can click the Add button to add whatever file you want. So in this case, I'm using Chartbook 45. Let's just go to Add. And then I think I've got this. I don't know if I saved this yet. No, I actually haven't saved this yet. So I kind of got ahead of myself here. Let's save this. So I'll go File, Save As. I'll call this one 12, 11, 17 Webinar Overlay Example. All right, so I just saved that with a file name. Go to Global Settings, General Settings. And then Files to open on startup. Go to Add. Select the file and push open, and you'll see it shows up in the list. So this means that tomorrow when I launch my charts, this is the chart book that's going to automatically launch upon startup. You might notice that there are some files that we put in there for you by default. Okay, if you don't want those to keep coming up, remove them using the remove button, and then uncheck this option here that says accept server-side set startup files. What this basically is that we put a couple of default chart books in here. One of them is called Starter Chart Book, another one's called Advanced Chart Types. If you're trying to get rid of those, if they keep coming up all the time, remove them from here using the remove buttons and then uncheck this option. Hit apply, hit OK. All right, that way you won't get those things coming up all the time. But this is how, and you can have more than one in here. So if you have 4 or 5 chart books that you want to launch automatically every time you go into the program, not a problem. My advice would be don't have 30 of them in here because it's going to tax, the program and probably your system on the way into the software, which can be problematic if you, have resource problems or if you're trying to do this really, really quickly for some reason. But, a few should be okay. Canon says, is version 1652 the version we should be using? I'm on 1665, which, Sierra does do a lot of updates. It's not critical that you update your program all the time. If there's a critical update of some kind with Sierra, you'll get a pop-up and it'll say on the way into the program, you need to update. And the way to update is to go to Help and select Download Current Version or Download Pre-Release if you want to see what their sort of like untested version is. So usually I use Download Current Version and it'll pause for a minute as it downloads in the background. You'll get a pop-up prompting you that it's been finished, and then it'll take you through an update process that's only 60 seconds long. You log off and back in, and you're going to have a higher version number than you had before. So Sierra does do a lot of updates, but it's not critical that you update, every one. They do sometimes several a week. So you'll see that number go up, frequently. Yeah, that's fine. 1652 is probably sounds about a week old. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate that. I agree. Okay. Very neat. Okay. There was a couple of questions that were left unanswered that I want to answer. And if you have any, now would be a good time to ask because I'm probably going to try to wrap things up here in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Edie, can the name or number of a chart book be changed once it's set up? Yeah, if you want to rename it, just go to File, Save As, and then just create a new name. That's no problem. Arthur, yeah, we did record this, and it should be up on our YouTube page within a day or so. So we will have it updated for you on YouTube. As you may know, folks, we do a lot of YouTube updating, several a week. So there's a section here. I actually will go ahead and I'll link everybody to it now. This is a place where I plan to archive these events. So if you want to go, you'll see the last couple of them are here. If you want to go check that out, you're welcome to. And then your rep in our office can send you, links to the prior recordings as well. Okay. Yeah, Canon, sure thing. Appreciate that. All right. Yeah, the YouTube archives is good stuff. Definitely, we get a lot of good feedback from that. Paul, your comment about the program being difficult and you're getting ready to drop it. Well, we hope you don't do that, obviously, but hopefully we can help you simplify things a little bit. And if you're getting stuck somewhere, definitely reach out to us. Let us know. We'll make sure you have the material you need. One thing about the YouTube stuff, Paul, and anyone else, is that I try to keep the YouTube videos short. I try to keep them clearly titled and clearly labeled. I don't like when people have to waste time for 40 minutes trying to, look through a video that they're not sure if that's what they're looking for. The videos are pretty clearly labeled. As an example, we have a playlist up here that's called Sierra Basics, Shortcuts, and Essentials. And if you look at some of the titles, you'll see some of this stuff we've covered here a little bit. Linking charts by study, detach a chart and move it to the other screen, changing the chart symbols via keyboard. These are things that I like people to be able to look at the title and say, yeah, I really want to do exactly what that's telling me. All right, so hopefully that's the goal. So hopefully we can help you simplify things a little bit. Okay. We do have an entire section, Rick, about pairs, setting up pairs trades, like spread style trades. Send me a quick note when you can, and I'll send you the playlist. It's also right up on the YouTube page. You can probably find it, but we have a link directly to it. Send me a quick note, and I'll get it over to you. Edie, if you open this up on another computer, these files are stored locally. They're not going to automatically transmit to your other machine. One thing that is kind of cool that you can do, though, is you can send the files to yourself through Sierra's interface. So when you log in on the new computer, they automatically download in the background. Here's an example of that. Let me show you something. This is actually a great question, and it's not something I've really covered before. Let me just give you an example of that. Give me 1 second. I have to pause the screen real quick. Okay, so what you could do, this is a neat feature, folks, and I'm glad, Edie, you mentioned this because there's a lot of people who've been with us for a long time who probably don't know how to do this. So it's actually a really great question. Is go up to the File menu, and there's an option here called Send File to User. And if you click on that and put in transact underscore user underscore your username. So my username is pzeilbauer. So what you need, this has to be typed in just like this. So transact with a capital T underscore user with a capital U underscore and then your username. You can go in here and select files. And what it will happen is this basically uploads your file to Sierra's cloud. And then when you log in on another computer and that computer doesn't have that file on it, Sierra will push you the file. So this just came out in the last, maybe the last month or so, but we've been fine tuning things a little bit. So if you have files that you would like to put on your other computer, you can either locate the chartbook files on your computer, email them to yourself, put them on a flash drive or something like that, or you can send them to yourself through this function. And then when you log in on the new device, Sierra's server will see that those files don't exist on the other computer and it will push them down to your computer. And that way you can go to File and select Open Chartbook and they'll be there. Carl, you can be logged into your account more than once, or excuse me, on more than one computer at the same time. It is possible. There are some things you want to be careful about that related to automated orders. So talk to your representative in our office if you plan to do that so they can clarify for you. The short answer, folks, is that if you want to log in, say, from two computers in your office in case one of them melts down or something like that, you can log in twice at the same time on two different devices. There are some complications that can arise if you use things like bracketing and automated orders and trailing stops and stuff. So if you're going to do that, make sure you talk to your representative so they can explain to you in greater detail, what to avoid doing. But it is possible. Okay. All right. All right, folks. I think that's probably where we're going to leave it for now. I will have this up on YouTube within a day or so. I appreciate everybody coming. We're going to continue this webinar series. I think we only have 1 or 2 events planned for the rest of the year that are instructional in nature, if that. And then next year we'll pick it up all over again. We'll start doing more pointed events that cover more specific topics in Sierra, and then we'll also continue to build the YouTube archive. So hopefully you found it useful. Again, for those of you who are experts, I apologize for making you watch something a little bit basic, but this one was geared towards newer customers. So the new folks here who are a little less familiar with Sierra or not familiar at all, I really hope we were able to get you on your feet, and hopefully the recording and the files themselves are useful. So if you'd like copies of these files, just send an email to your rep in our office. We'll get them over to you. We'll show you how to install them and where they need to go on your computer so you can use them. And hopefully that and the recording will put you in a better spot. All right. Okay. Thanks again, guys and gals. Appreciate that. I'm going to read some risk stuff one more time, then we'll close the room and we will see you next time. Okay. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. All right, folks. Thank you. Have a great night. All right, folks, trading futures, options on futures, and retail off-exchange foreign currency transactions involve substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. You should carefully consider whether trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances and knowledge and financial resources. You may lose all or more of your initial investment. Opinions, market data, and recommendations are subject to change at any time. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.